This is the Ordinary Business Podcast for business owners who want honest conversations, a lean business, and an extraordinary life on their own terms. Hey friends, just a heads up, you might have seen on social me talking about having some health issues, and one of the things I needed to do was take some things off my plate for a little bit while I figure things out. I didn't want this podcast to end though, so all the guests that I was planning to interview are actually going to record solo and answer the questions that I was actually going to ask them just without me interrupting them. So here you go.
Hi, everyone. This is Esmeralda. I am taking over the Ordinary Business podcast today. I'm an email and funnel strategist, deliverability expert, and founder of MEO Marketing Group. A fun thing that I love to do while I'm working. So since I work from home and I'm a writer, it is important to have the right ambiance. And one of my favorite playlists is a playlist on YouTube that's also on Spotify. That I love listening to when I'm writing. It's called You Slowly Realize You Weren't Meant to Save the World, You Were Meant to Destroy It. I know it sounds super dramatic, but it's just a bunch of epic music that before I listened to that playlist, I had never heard it anywhere else. So it makes me feel like I can do anything. So that's definitely one of my favorite things to listen to. But today I'm here to talk to you about my approach to email marketing. I know newsletters have had a moment for quite a while, and now it's kind of moved to Substack, and newsletters are still around. And to be honest, I thought they were kind of boring. Just the way that a lot of them were structured. They're structured kind of like a newspaper with an overwhelming amount of information, usually pertaining to a particular niche, but I just didn't really find it very helpful. It just kind of felt like a listicle in a way. So I wanted to do something different, and I am creating my newsletter, which I call MEO's Marketing Memos. It's an audio newsletter for founders who are looking to create email systems and funnels that work for them and not for anybody else. And it's where you can get your ungoogleable email and funnel questions answered. And it's really fun because I encourage my subscribers to submit questions. I have an anonymous question form, and that allows them to submit pretty much any question that they have. And because I like to be thorough, I do have the written version of what I call a memo. So that's my newsletter, every edition that comes out. So I'll have a story that relates to whatever the question is, whatever the topic is, and then I will answer it more in depth in a voice memo, because I am the voice notes friend, and it's just easier to articulate things that way, especially when you're teaching something that is fairly technical. So the memos end up being about 10 minutes long at the most. I also incorporate polls to see what my list is more interested in hearing more about. So each quarter they choose a topic, and each month I have 2 memos coming out that go deeper into the topic. So there's the written format that has a story that ties into it, and then obviously the deeper dive in the audio version.
You've been in business long enough to know that being solo is not a stepping stone, and most communities pretend you either want to be solo because you're broke and desperate, or that you secretly want to scale. And the Ordinary Business Network is neither of those things. We are a network for service providers who are focused on becoming better, not bigger. Sign up for only $150 a year if you join by July 31st. Go to theordinarybusiness.com to learn more.
And I always talk about my entry point offer in there as well, because I'm not just teaching, because I do think it is important to also talk about your services, but it's also important to show that proof that you know what you're talking about, essentially. And I don't want to gatekeep everything, just because I do think a lot of things are being gatekept. And I initially wanted to use something like Hello Audio to host it, because it kind of made sense. I know prior podcasts have been pretty popular as a lead magnet in general for a while, but only ever seen them hosted on something like that. But I didn't want to pay for it when I didn't know how it was going to perform yet. So I host everything through Google Drive, and it's really easy. It's super low tech. I have a specific folder where all of them go in, and they're all numbered and labeled. So eventually that's going to be repurposed to my actual podcast once I create one. And I just record it with the voice notes app on my laptop. It's easy as that, and the audio quality is great, and I get really great feedback as well because it feels personal, but at the same time, you're getting enough good information about it that I don't think it really makes a difference. I don't have like fancy intro or outro music or anything like that. And I know that sometimes, like we all know, like on social media, that people will post the questions box and ask for questions, and sometimes people don't ask any. I mean, that happens to me sometimes too. Sometimes people, they just don't have any questions to answer. I do encourage people to do that just to kind of remind them every time I send a memo, hey, if you have additional questions, reply to this email, something to the anonymous question form, just because it can feel vulnerable to ask a question about something when you may not have never, like, really spoken before. So I understand there's a trust element involved, which is why I enjoy doing this so much. So I'm also really happy and honored too that a lot of people have trusted me, um, with whatever it is that they're currently dealing with, so I can give them some customized advice, um, which is helpful to everyone all around. And I just think it's a lot of fun. I've done 2 memos per month just because that's the cadence that I can stick to, and 10 minutes feels very doable. I used to just try to do it in one take without having a script. I don't like having an actual script, but the issue was, I kept repeating myself because I talk about something that I talked about in the beginning of the memo, so then I have to do multiple takes. So now what I do is I know what I'm going to talk about already. I talked to Claude, asked it to give me some talking points, which I normally have to refine a little bit just because Claude doesn't always know what he's talking about. But I do ask it to give me a verbatim closeout for my call to action because that was what I noticed when I was doing these early on. I always tripped up doing the call to action, which is weird because I do this for clients all the time. I write a lot of email sequences, so, like, when I'm writing it feels really easy, but something about vocalizing it felt a little bit weird, so that's really all that goes into it, and the call to action is almost always the same. Technically, I have to submit a question, or to book a sales funnel diagnostic, which is my entry point offer, because my projects tend to be pretty long and in multiple phases, even if it's not a retainer client that I'm working with. The sales funnel diagnostic is kind of a no-brainer if you know you need help or you're not quite sure what you need help with. So it all just kind of flows together really smoothly, which is really nice. And yeah, just like I said, I find it fun. I know that there are probably other somewhat similar formats that I've seen. I've been doing this for a couple of years now, and I haven't personally haven't seen anybody else promote their newsletter as being an audio newsletter. But I like that people know that that like that is what I do. Because I think it's fun, and one of the things that I love about email marketing is that yes, obviously there's a lot of strategy and science that goes with it, but there's so much room for experimentation, and this is what I've experimented with, and it's what's worked for me. So I don't see the point in making any changes to that. And as far as what performs well for me specifically, I have a knack for very unusual 2 to 3 word subject lines that get the emails opened. And also get the links clicked as well to listen to the memo, and I think it's because instead of treating the body copy of the memo as verbatim of whatever is in the audio version, I have it as a completely different story that ties into it. So the subject line can be anything. Like I had a memo that I sent out recently about a month ago where the the subject line was screaming pigeons because I was talking about how the pigeons in the park next to me, because I live next to a park, we share a fence. I knew something was going on, just because I hear them all day, and I knew there was something stressful going on. It turns out that our neighborhood hawk was hunting, and she was trying to take the babies, and the pigeons fought back. So like, and I ended up tying that into community and tying that into having the right people in your network, which tied into the topic of the memo that I was talking about. So that's what I mean, that marketing is an experiment and you just have to see what works for you. And that's what's worked for me, having the story, having the memo, and then having the weird subject line that is builds curiosity, but at the same time too, it still has something to do with the content of what's inside the email, which is really important because if they're not related, that's really bad for deliverability. But that is everything that I have for you today. Thank you so much for listening. If you want to learn more, you can find me on my website. That's meomarketinggroup.com. And if you want to take a listen to my private podcast, it's only 4 episodes. You can binge them in less than an hour. You can listen to those at meomarketing.com/private podcast.